responsibility. Okay? If we turn the next page, still the back of the same page, this is from a book called Teaching Jewish Life Cycle. It is clear that for much of Jewish history, becoming a bar or bat mitzvah was an automatic development, not recognized in any formal way. During the Middle Ages, however, a ceremony developed to mark this important transition in order to symbolize his participation in the community as an adult, accepting the responsibility for observing the mitzvot. The young boy would be given an aliyah, being called to the Torah, to read what's called the maftir, the last few verses of the Torah portion. He would also chant the haftarah, the weekly reading from the prophets, or the writings. I think aliyah and haftarah are both words that you have. So what happens is once, and this is where the idea, well, first of all, from the obligation and the responsibility, we start to see this idea that at 13, a boy becomes a man, right? That's what you always hear with the bar mitzvah. There's another concept that I don't think we've learned about called minyan. The big secret in Judaism, and I don't like to tell too many people this, is that to have, do we have anyone who's Catholic? Or brought up Catholic? Okay. So in the Catholic Church, if I want to have Mass, what do I have to have? A priest. Right? You have to have a priest for Mass. I guess there are some things that a deacon can do, but you have to have a priest. In Judaism, to have a, well, first of all, you can do a Jewish service by yourself, right? One person, wherever you are, you can have a Jewish prayer service. But there are certain prayers that you can't do if you're by yourself. There are also certain, like reading from a Torah, you can't do if you're by yourself. So what do you need for those things? Not a rabbi. That's my big secret, right? You do not need a rabbi for any form of a Jewish service. What you need for those prayers and to read Torah is what's called a minyan, which is traditionally, it's 10 men. Okay? So, what does that have to do with bar mitzvah? That for someone to be counted in a minyan, they have to be a Jewish male over the age of 13. Okay? Now, now conservative and reform, men and women are both counted in a minyan. There are also, by the way, egalitarian Orthodox synagogues. But they have a problem. They have things they allow women to do with minyan, and this has nothing to do with bar mitzvah confirmation. But what they'll do is they actually require 10 men and 10 women to call it a minyan. Okay, so to show that this boy at 13 years old is now a full member of the Jewish community, able to be counted in a minyan, we symbolize that by calling him up to the Torah, right? So an aliyah is the blessing. Aliyah is not the reading. The aliyah is the blessing before and after the Torah reading. And in a traditional bar mitzvah, he would also read that very end of the Torah. We actually have our kids in a Reform bar mitzvah read more Torah than most Orthodox bar mitzvahs would read. The difference for us is with the haftarah, which is that added reading from the prophets or the writings that's associated with the Torah portion for each week, and we read a shorter section than in Orthodox and conservative synagogues. All right, but so you see that service doesn't come until the Middle Ages. In some communities, the young man would also lead part or all of the worship service, deliver a drasha, a short discourse interpreting Torah reading or pertaining to a matter of Jewish law. The bat mitzvah ceremony, bat means daughter. The bat mitzvah ceremony for young Jewish women did not begin until the 20th century. Some 19th century families celebrated a girl's 12th birthday with a special meal and other non-synagogue rituals. However, the first bat mitzvah to be celebrated in conjunction with the worship service occurred in 1922. It was celebrated by Judith Kaplan, the daughter of Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, then a teacher at the Jewish Theological Seminary. He would go on to found Reconstructionist Judaism, and she to become a respected musicologist. During the service, Judith Kaplan read the Torah blessings and part of her Torah portion, but she read it from a book, not from the Torah scroll, and she did so only after her father had read the same portion. So he read it to fulfill the mitzvah, she read it to signify her age. And that was the first bat mitzvah. As far as today, in the early, any questions about the traditional bar and bat mitzvah, turning 12, turning 13? Yes.
This is all done in Hebrew?
Okay, so in an Orthodox service, you really wouldn't hear much English. So yes. And for us today too, our children, and I'm going to talk about it more later, but our children lead the service in Hebrew and English. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. On here it says that Bible studies should begin at 5, but really, say my son, what age should he start?
Okay.
Studying
So that text, right? That text is from the year 200. Okay? What it shows and what we get from it is that there's a progression of Jewish education. Right? Now, one thing that's interesting is, when does a child start learning Talmud? 15. When is he obligated to follow the commandments, most of which are described in the Talmud? At 13, right? Jewish education today is going to be different wherever you are, right? In an Orthodox community, and we have Jewish day school in Tampa also, that's not just Orthodox. We have a community Jewish day school. Most of our kids at this synagogue go to public or go to secular school, okay? We have our Sunday school, our religious school, which starts at 5 years old, and the kids come in and they start learning Bible stories, they start learning stories from the Torah, they learn about the holidays, but it's a progression, right? When a kid comes in kindergarten, we're not giving them, Mishnah and Talmud and Gemara. I start showing my kids in the 8th grade class Talmud texts, and that's really the first time they see them. So, in our education too, it's a progression. But that 5, 7, 15 is I would say, just an expression of that idea of progression. Okay? We start teaching Hebrew at 3rd grade, but different places are going to do it differently. And it's different, someone who's in a Jewish school Monday through, or really Sunday through Friday, versus once a day. Okay. So in the Reform movement, and I know you guys haven't learned Reform, Conservative, Orthodox yet. It's very hard to get everything at the right time. But hopefully you at least have some idea now. The Reform movement really started in the 1800s. And in early Reform, okay, once it really became a movement, once it wasn't just we're changing Judaism for everyone, once there was an established Reform movement, a lot of things got thrown away. Right? This was a time in Reform synagogues where not only did you not have to wear a yarmulke, a head covering, you weren't allowed to wear a head covering. was when anything that was viewed to separate us from other people, anything that was viewed as an archaic ritual, was thrown away. In early Reformed Judaism, they didn't say you don't have to keep kosher. They said the laws of kashrut are archaic and have no need to exist in our societies today. Right? This is really 1800s. Okay? So what about bar mitzvah? And if we look now at this page, this is from 1907. Ceremonies which assign, we're at number 6, no to bar mitzvah. Okay? Ceremonies which assign to woman an inferior rank according to Oriental notions are out of place with us. Reformed Judaism recognizes woman as man's equal and sees in her deeper emotional nature, which is more responsive to the promptings of the Spirit, the real inspiring influence for religious life in the household. Accordingly, all the ceremonies in the domestic life today should be occidental rather than oriental in form and character, right? Our goal is to fit in with our Protestant neighbors. In this connection, let me speak of the bar mitzvah ceremony to which many Reformed congregations still adhere. By so doing, they ignore the plain fact that the calling up of the 13-year-old lad to read from the Torah is a mere survival of the calling up of all the members of the congregation to the Torah reading. The original significance, which was to indicate thereby the admission of the lad into the membership of the congregation, has been forgotten, and consequently the usage today is meaningless. The moment the Oriental notion of the superiority of man over woman in religious life was abandoned, a form of consecration for the young of both sexes was instituted and the beautiful rite of confirmation was adopted. Okay, so for early Reformed Judaism, we get rid, there is no bat mitzvah still, right? That idea is, the first female rabbi in the Reform movement is not until 1972. Okay, so yes, they're saying men and women are equal, but men and women are equal, right? Men and women are as equal as they could be in 1907, okay? So what do? We get rid of bar mitzvah, and we replace it with what? Consecration and confirmation. Okay, where do we get that from, by the way? Our Protestant neighbors, right? Because that's who we want to fit in with, right? We moved and this you'll learn more when you learn Reform, but we moved the bima, where the rabbi stands, from the middle of the congregation, facing the same way they do, to a raised platform facing them, right? The rabbi wears a robe, right? The prayer is done in the vernacular, right? English in America, German in Germany, right? We don't all go at our own pace. We read together as a group, as a dignified group, because that's what our Protestant neighbors do. Okay? So consecration was children at a young age, right? Kind of learning, they're just beginning their religious education. And then they said, well, 13, it's ridiculous to say at 13 that I'm a man. It's ridiculous to say at 13 that I'm choosing anything, right? So we take a slightly older age, usually 15, 16, and we have a confirmation service where boys and girls together confirm that they are of the Jewish faith that they had been brought up, right? Early confirmation services involved, do you have anyone who was confirmed in a Christian church? Okay, and isn't there, I have it, isn't there like a creed that's read, right? So early Reformed confirmation had a creed, right, where the boys and girls would read, I believe this, I believe this, I believe this. Okay? At our confirmation service today, you do not see a creed. We have our young men and women. We do it after 9th grade. Most synagogues, you'll see it after 10th grade. We do it